Our next topic of discussion is going to be multiplying decimals. Before we talk about the procedure for multiplying decimals, let's look at this from a fraction perspective. So if we look at 0.3 times 0.07, let's write these each as fractions. 0.3, remember, is 3/10, so this is going to be 3 over 10. 0.07 is 7/100, so that's going to be 7 in the numerator and 100 in the denominator. Recall that when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across, so 3 times 7 is 21. 10 times 100, this is going to be 1 followed by 3 zeros, so we get 1,000. Alright, if I go ahead and rewrite this as a decimal, 21 thousandths, this is going to be 21. I need 3 decimal places, and so I need to input a 0 between the decimal point and the 21. So let's go ahead and look at what this means. 0.3 times 0.07 equals 0.021. So how do we come up with this answer? The first thing that we do is we multiply the 3 and the 7. That gives us the 21. How do I get 3 decimal places? Well, if we look back at our problem, I have 1 decimal place in the first number and 2 decimal places in the second number, giving me a total of 3. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about our procedure. The first thing that we're going to do is multiply, disregarding signs and decimal places. To determine the number of decimal places in the answer, we're going to add up all the decimal places in the problem. We want to insert zeros between the decimal point and our answer as needed, just like we did on the previous problem. Finally, we want to determine the sign of the answer. Remember, if there is an even number of negatives, the result will be positive, and if there is an odd number of negatives, the result will be negative. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at some examples. We're going to go ahead and use our previous procedure in order to do this. Let's start with 2.6 times 0.04. So as mentioned in the previous slide, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and multiply disregarding signs and disregarding decimal points. So what I want to multiply here is I want to multiply 26 times 4. So 4 times 6 is 24. We carry our 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So what we have here so far is 104. How many decimal places do I have? I have 1 in my first number, 1 in my second number. That means I need 2. So I'm going to put my decimal point after the 1. Our final answer is 1.04. All right, let's look at B. We have 0.104 times 7. Now, the one thing I want to point out on this is remember that we always like putting the larger number on top. Now, when we talk about larger number in terms of multiplication, we don't want to think about which number is actually larger. We want to think about which number has the most number of decimal places. So for instance, on this one, 7 is technically larger than 0.104, but it has fewer digits. And so for this problem, I'm actually going to put the 104 on top. And I'm going to multiply by 7. All right, so if we go ahead and multiply, I get 7 times 4 is 28. Carry the 2. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And 7 times 1 is 7. So far we have 728. How many decimal places do we have? We have a total of 3 in our first number. We don't have any in our second number. Total, that is going to be 3. So in order to have 3 decimal places, I want my point before my 7. Okay, let's come over to C. We have 45.2 times 0.25. All right, my number with the most number of digits is the 45.2, so I'm going to put 452 on top, times 25. Again, I'm going to ignore my decimal places. I'm going to ignore signs, even though we don't have any. So we go ahead and multiply. We get 5 times 2 is 10. We carry the 1. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 1 is 26. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 is 22. All right, we're done with our carrying digits there. Okay, now we're going to multiply by 2. We get 2 times 2 is 4. And remember, we want to line up under the digit that we are working with. So since I'm working with the 2, I want to line up in my underneath the 6 of my previous answer. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. And 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And now we go ahead and do some addition. So starting on the right, we get 0. 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And 2 plus 9 is 11. So far we have 11, 3, 0, 0. How many decimal places do we have in our problem? We have 1 in our first number. We have 2 in our second number. That is a total of 3. So where am I going to put my decimal point? In order to have 3 digits after the decimal point, I need to put it after the 11. Now, we talked about zeros being necessary in our roundings. But for this problem, are the zeros necessary? Since we're not being told that we have to have a certain number of decimal places, we can actually go ahead and write our answer as 11.3. Those zeros at the end are extra. We do need them to figure out where our decimal point goes, but we do not need to write them in our final answer. Okay, so that is example C. Let's try a couple more. Let's come down to example D. We have negative 611 times negative 3.7. So my number that has the most number of digits is the 611. So I'm going to put that one on top. And on the bottom, I'm going to put my 37. Again, remember we're going to disregard decimal places and negative signs. So we go ahead and multiply. We're going to start with the 7. So 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 1 is still 7. And 7 times 6 is 42. Next, we multiply by 3. We get 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. And 3 times 6 is 18. All right, if we add, we get 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. We'll carry the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. 4 times 8 is 12. Carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. How many decimal places do we have? The first number has no decimal places, and our second number has 1. So we need 1 decimal place in our problem. So we're going to get 2260.7, and I'm going to put my decimal point after the 0 so that we have 1 decimal place. Now we want to talk about the signs. Our signs, we have 2 negatives, and so remember that when we have 2 negatives we can cancel them out, and so my final answer will be positive 2260.7. All right, one more in this group. Okay, so we have negative 3.18 times 2.23. So I'm going to put the 318 on top and the 223 on the bottom. All right, so if we go ahead and multiply, starting on the right, we get 3 times 8 is 24. Carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. And 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, next digit. We want to multiply by the 2. So 2 times 8 is 16. And remember that we want to line it up underneath the digit that we're working with. So I'm going to put my answer underneath the 5. So we get 2 times 8 is 16. We carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And 2 times 3 is 6. Okay. Last digit. We're going to have the same thing. 2 times 8 is 16. We carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And 2 times 3 is 6. Remember, if you want, you can add zeros so that everything has the same number of digits, or so that every column has digits in it. So if we start by adding, we get 4. 5 plus 6 is 11. 1 plus 9 is 10. Plus 3 is 13. Plus 6 is 19. 1 plus 6 plus 3. We get 1 plus 6 is 7. Plus 3 is 10. And 1 plus 6 is 7. So far we have 70914. Okay, our decimal point. We have 2 decimal places in the first number. We have 2 in the second number. That is a total of 4. So to have 4 decimal places, I want my decimal point after my 7. Now for our signs, I have 1 negative, and we need to keep it. So my final answer is negative 7.0914. Okay, so those are some basic multiplication problems involving decimals. So now, let's go ahead and look at some problems where we have to insert zeros. We haven't had to do that yet. So let's go ahead and look at another grouping. And see what we can do. So in this grouping, one thing to note is we got lots of zeros between our numbers and our decimal places. But one other thing to notice about this is that we don't need to do long multiplication on these because these are just multiplying 1-digit numbers. So for instance, on A, let's see what we can do. Again, I'm going to multiply disregarding the decimal points and disregarding signs. So what this problem boils down to is I want to multiply 4 and 9. 4 times 9 is 36. And now I need to know how many decimal places do I need. This number, 0.04, has 2 decimal places. 0.09 has 2 decimal places as well. That is a total of 4 decimal places. That means we need 4 digits after the decimal point. Right now, 36 is only a 2-digit number, and so I need to enter in zeros between my decimal point and my number. We need a total of 2 zeros in between our decimal point and our number. So our final answer is going to be, 0.0036. And we're done. All right, let's take a look at B. B, we have 0.2 times 0.008. All right, so if we go ahead and multiply, again, I just want to multiply disregarding the decimal places. So what we're multiplying is 2 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. And now we want to figure out how many decimal places do we need. The first number has 1 decimal place. The second number has 3 decimal places, giving me a total of 4. Right now I have a 2-digit number, so I need 2 more decimal places. I'm going to add in 2 zeros between my decimal point and my number. So we end up with 0.0016. And we're done. All right, last one. We have negative 0.003 squared. Now the first thing I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier on myself is I want to go ahead and convert this to a multiplication problem. So this is really 0.003 times 0.003. Remember that when you square it, it is times itself. And the only reason that I'm writing it out this way is when we get to counting our decimal places. All right, so again, this boils down to what is 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Now, how many decimal places do we need? Well, our first number has a total of 3 decimal places. Our second number has a total of 3 decimal places, and so we need 6. I have 1 digit so far, and so in order to get to 6, I need 5 zeros. So I'm going to add in 5 zeros, and then my decimal point. Finally, we want to determine the sign. Technically, this is negative 0.3 and negative 0.003. We have 2 negatives being multiplied together, and so my answer will be positive. So that takes care of multiplication.